Happy to be here. I was actually born and raised in Ukraine, and for the last 15 years, and by the way, where's my clicker? Got it. I'm going to do a little bit of introduction about myself very quickly. I'm a co-founder of Publishnow. It's a pre-seed company. We develop a content publishing and distribution platform, and we want to help companies to increase content engagement and reach. We think that blogging should be easy, so we require no markup, no coding, and no plugins. Before that, I was a marketing consultant and advisor for multiple companies. I was a founding team member at Trinsic that later got acquired by Gainsight. And at Trinsic, I built the whole marketing strategy from ground up, and I also co-authored book, Mastering Product Experience in SaaS. This book talks about how you can personalize product experience using product-led go-to-market strategies. So how you can get people inside your product, understand how they use your product, and then personalize their experiences inside of the product. So about 4 years ago, I had a problem. Nobody knew who I am, and nobody knew that I know marketing. And nobody would want to work with me because I've never had an experience with a large brand. I never sold my startup for a large company. So I was thinking, how can I actually prove to founders and to marketers and the companies that I want to work with that I actually know something? So I started writing. And in the last 3.5 years, my content has been read by over 450,000 people. And I don't say that to brag about it, maybe just a little, but I believe that since my presentation is about content strategy, it's important for me to show you that this pain is something that I actually experienced. I decided to write because I knew this is going to help me my brand. I knew it's going to help me bring clients, and very often when I talk to companies and I see that they have a pain, I actually refer them to my content. So I think that everybody's seen this map of how many companies we have in MarTech, and this is a huge. In 2019, we have over 7,000 companies in MarTech industry alone. And in the last few years, we saw that it actually grew like 45 times. It's incredible growth. And the question comes, how do you differentiate yourself? How do you build brand when there are so many other companies out there competing for the same customers, competing for the same attention? So there is a great quote that I like from founder and CEO of Drift. By the way, guys, does anybody know, can you raise your hands who know Drift, company Drift? If you don't, I really highly recommend to follow how they do marketing, because their all marketing is about content. They do podcasts, they do books, they do events, webinars, they do videos quite well. So there's a great quote by David Cancel, somebody who I respect quite a bit. And he says that today we can't really compete on the features. We have to compete on a brand. What it means is that if you release your feature, your competitor can copy that feature tomorrow. If your competitor brings you a feature today, you will copy it tomorrow if it's really useful for your customers. So how do you actually differentiate and how do you build brand? And this is a question that brings us to the main point here, is that we're living in a content economy. We produce a lot of content. We produce a lot of content to get that attention because we want to talk to the people we want to sell. We want to influence them. We want to make sure we impact and change how they think about the product, how they think about the actual industry, and how we can change their behavior. So today, every company is a media company. Today, what it means is that every company has to produce content. They just must produce content to survive. There is no other way around it. So this is an example. When I was preparing for this presentation, I actually received an email from a stock brokerage. So they send me email, and this email is not about their services. It's not about their product, but they actually inviting me to participate in their podcast because they understand that if they produce content that can attract people and you continue conversation with people over a long period of time, this allows you to actually sell them, where you build trust with them. So content is a top priority for marketers. According to multiple studies, I believe the percentage-wise is like 89%. Companies say that marketing is their top priority. And this is why a couple of stats that I think it's very interesting to look into is that B2B customers actually progress about 70% down the buying journey without actually talking to the salesperson. How that happens? Basically, they have a pain, they start typing, they find some content, they go to a competitor's website, they go to the website that somebody, influencers, read about it, and actually they're kind of making decisions. So by the time they actually talk to your salesperson, they actually already made sort of analysis of the industry and ready to make that decision. Buyers consume about 11 pieces of content before they buy. And that's very important because we think about it, well, we just released this great marketing content, what's our ROI? And a lot of founders wanted this right away to see results of this. But it's a longer process. You have to touch your customer multiple times, maybe 10, maybe 11. Very often, when we say about 11 pieces of content, we mean articles, we mean blogs, we mean webinars, maybe you have podcasts, maybe you have white papers, maybe you have events. But you have to think about it, about 11 touches you have to make with your customers before they're going to buy. About 57% actually made a purchasing decision before they even call a supplier. What that means is that 57%, about half, actually already made the decision when they call you because they read about it, they made a comparison, there's a lot of content they can find about this topic, and by the time they actually come to you, they already made the decision. So every company must focus on two things: content production and content distribution. It's not one or the other. Very often you think you just post the content, post it on social media, and hope everybody come in. And today I'll break down a couple of processes of how you can actually increase your distribution. But my main point here that it's not just about production. And in order to kind of learn how this industry will go, like how content strategy will actually help you grow, it's very helpful to look into another industry, and this industry is entertainment. Previously, for the last 80 years, we had big companies that actually were in charge of producing content. Disney, 24th Century Fox, they produce show, videos, and they have their traditional distribution methods. Cable networks, they distribute their content through cinemas or theaters. But internet enabled new companies to build distribution networks. And when you look at the Netflix, it's a perfect example. When they started doing their, using other people's content in order to build a distribution network. The same way Google realized that they have a tremendous distribution through their App Store, and Apple has iTunes, and Amazon has Prime, so they started producing their own content because they have a better margins if they produce their own content, and they are able to get feedback from the customers right away. So this year, Disney announced they're going to be launching a streaming service. And in the next couple of years, Amazon, Netflix, and Apple will actually invest tremendous amount of money to produce original content. And this is how you should think about your marketing strategy. If you're a SaaS company, if you're an enterprise, if you're a consumer, that you have to produce content and find a way to distribute the content. You have to think about content strategy in terms of production and distribution. So everybody wants to have a high distribution and high production. So 5 steps to improve your content production. Step number 1, it maybe sounds very obvious and easy, but I see a lot of companies forget about this step. Make sure you know who you're writing to. If you have an ideal customer profile, that's great, because if you do, you can actually understand who you're writing to. You can actually understand what do they read, what type of events they go to, and what type of people they follow, who the influencers they are in this industry. You want to understand their beliefs, their values, because this will make your content greater. And sometimes in SaaS, you have multiple decision makers. And sometimes you have 3 or 4 decision makers. But my suggestion, and there's a lot of companies that prove that you first want to focus on one persona or on one ideal customer. And then, if you grow that over a period of 6 to 12 months, then you can start take another persona in your buying process and start producing content for them. But focus on one persona first. Get that right, make sure they come to you, and make sure that you're writing content that really engages them. Step number 2. Very popular question that I get: what do I start writing about? Where do I get topics? And my first answer, and the easiest answer, talk to your customers or talk to your prospects. Because you don't know what to write about, set up a couple of interviews with your customers and ask them what they care about. You can actually understand what they care about and actually start writing maybe interviews first. That will allow you to actually get some ideas about what to write next. Address common pains and objections. Well, if you build a product, you don't want to talk about your product in your content. But what you want to do, you want to talk about the pain that your product solves. You want to advocate for pain and not for the product. You want to make sure you discuss why they should care about this product, what will they get if they solve this pain. So this is a good way for you to actually build the content that it really cares about. The other thing is objections. Every single sales person will be able to tell you what type of typical objections do they have when they're trying to sell your product. And if you collect as organizations those objections, write articles about that. Because when the salesperson gets on the phone, they hear those objections, they talk to them, they hang up the phone, they can send an email with a link to the article that actually speaks about this topic more often. And you already know how to get this type of topics because your salespeople know what objections your products typically hear. Another great way to get ideas for topics is do surveys. Everybody likes numbers. Everybody likes to hear how they actually stack up against other companies. So a very good way to actually do that is to create a survey, maybe 10 to 20 questions, send it out, and then tell you, remember I showed you a couple of stats today? They were actually produced by those surveys that tell, that they named content marketing as the top marketing pain for marketers. And if you do that, you produce content that you can then post or maybe build some relationship to share that content with publications because everybody likes research. So survey is a very important way. Then search what people talk about on Quora and Reddit and other communities. This is a great way. By the way, Quora is my favorite tool for B2B marketers. I think it's one of the underrated tools because this is a great place where people actually ask questions. So they actually ask questions that they care about. And then the last part, and I want to emphasize that only the last part you go and find out what people search for. Because the search is I would say it's one of the common mistakes, at least in my opinion, and this is a not popular opinion, because very often I hear, well, we have this keyword research and we start already producing content about it. However, you don't know who made this research. You don't know who made those searches. You don't know what the motivations they are. So start with your customers first, and then use content strategy, keyword research to actually optimize your content better. Because your ideas come from people that you want to sell to, and then use keyword research to analyze how you can enhance or maybe change some sort of keywords or phrases that are more popular or more prevalent for this particular audience. Step 3, when I started write content, it was very popular to talk about you have to write short pieces of content. Nobody cares about the long people code. We live in the Instagram age. We are in Facebook age. If it's less than 30, if it's more than 5 minutes to read, nobody cares about it. However, if the content is good, if your topics that you research is good, write long content. Because people do what? People will bookmark it. People will come back to it. People will share it. It's a very good way, if you build your content strategy, to figure out what are the big topics, what are the big content pieces we can produce, maybe 3-4 times per year. And then you can use a lot of different strategies in terms of how to distribute this content. You can break it down to the summaries, and this is a great content pyramid they're going to show you. You probably have seen by Gary Vaynerchuk, where he also talks about create pillar great content, big content. Then it's easier to break it down on smaller pieces of content, and this all going to roll up into your content. So your content is going to be pushing it's going to get much more leads. It's going to get much more shares and referrals. Step number 3, content experience. And I know it sounds simple again, but if you have a bad blog, if your blog is not very nice to read, if you have some sort of old WordPress template that is very difficult to read the fonts, or it's very difficult to understand how your content flows down the page, make sure that your blog is well designed. Make sure that you produce, maybe it's not blog, maybe it's your resource pages, but make sure it's well designed. You want to design in a way that allows people to enjoy reading your content, that allows people to actually come back to and get maximum of your content. Make sure that you add some of the images, because images are very good. Try not to use stock images because they're very overused and do not provide a lot of value. Even if you want to do some sort of you need some people, that you want to do some general people image. Again, I would like to refer you to Drift, that actually make pictures of their own team only, and they do not use any stock imagery. Very small things like link your articles, because it allows you to kind of get people on one topic, and I do it quite often. If you are familiar with my articles, I have quite a few links on my other articles, because I feel that people who invested in my content, they actually understand the value of it, and they feel like they're going to continue reading some of my stuff. This is another thing that I would like to talk about. I really was a big fan of Medium. I was one of the sort of early adopters of Medium. I think they've done a great job when it comes to how content is presented, how easy it is to manage. However, Medium does not allow you to add your blog to your domain anymore. And Medium does not allow you to actually optimize it for SEO. And Medium does not allow you to add your own call to action, to add drift, to add intercom. And this is why a lot of companies that have actually adopted Medium early in their life actually switching. So this is a great example. I'm sure some of you have heard about company Basecamp and their quite popular startup blog, Signal versus Noise. And they actually shifted from using Medium. The reason why I'm kind of pointing this out is you want to make sure that your content experience is something you can control. So do not pass it on to someone else, to some other platform. Make sure it lives on your domain. Make sure you have access to it. And this is why we actually build Publishnow. Capture your audience. And this is my favorite topic. I've been fighting this whole no lead generation forum before even Drift came along with their no form signs. The history of entrepreneurship and marketing sort of made it sort of easy for marketers to create PDF, to put a bunch of questions put a bunch of questions on the gate, and only allow people to see the content when they actually answer those questions. But let me ask you, think about this. If somebody would ask you for your phone number and for your name before you walk into the store, do you think it's a good strategy? I know it sounds like it's not maybe ideal analogy, but that's exactly what it is. First of all, you're building content so you can share it with many people. so that you transform your company, you build your brand by actually communicating as much as possible. Because actually, let me ask you, how many of you actually ever downloaded a PDF or white paper? All right, so keep your hands up, keep your hands up. So how many of you actually send link to actual page again? None. Because what you did, you sent PDF to your team. And from the standpoint of a content marketer, that means that I don't know who you share that content with. I don't get any more benefits out of it. At the same time, if you would share the link and you allow me to kind of read this whole content right away, I would share it. And the person that you share it with might actually like my other content, and they might be share that content. So this, you want to make sure you provide your content open, because this way you can get as much audience as possible. However, you should find a way to capture. And this is a couple of examples. This is a first round review, and I'm sure you also know it's one of the best publications on SaaS marketing and VC. I really highly recommend you guys to read it. But what they do, they know the content is very good. So when you come to their page, what they do that for 30 seconds after you're there, they do this pop-up. Hey, if you really want to become part of our community and get this content earlier, please subscribe. Another example is a team that I work with, Google, is Hired by Google, which actually includes those call to action right in the middle of the content. But it's a different type where you actually have full access to the content. This is just a way to remind your readers that they can get more by actually sign up for a newsletter or maybe sign up for a next webinar or something like that. So this is the best way to capture your content, to capture audience of your content. All right, so 5 steps to improve your distribution. Step number 1, people forget and companies forget about it. You have the whole team. You have the whole team in your company that can support your content. Ping them. I don't care if they're engineers, customer success, janitors, I don't care. You release your content, make sure this content is shared by everyone and liked. It should be part of your policy in the company. Why this is? Because you want to get this content a boost right away. And this is an example of companies that I work with that actually, every time the content is produced, they post it on Slack channel, and everybody's required to support this content right away. Step number 2. This is something I talked to you about already, but Gary Vaynerchuk produces this very good sort of inverse pyramid where he talks about similar things, where he documented how he does stuff. He creates pillar and big content, and then he finds and breaks down this into the smaller content. And this is how he improves the sharing. Make sure you plan your distribution 10, 20 days ahead. What it means is that you release your article today on your blog, create summary, and release your article on Medium with link back to your blog in 5 days or 7 days. Then, in 5, 7 days, release your summary, maybe different parts of the blog on your Medium, link back to your original article. And every of those small pushes, you actually share that on social media as well. So you build those type of waves that over 10, 20 days, you actually promote one piece of content. And don't worry about giving too much information, pushing too much of your content, because it's not like your customers sit there every day and just scroll your feed and see that it's the same article. Use different tags, use different images, but do that on a regular basis. Step number 3 is that pitch to influencers. This is something I have done quite a bit. Make sure you put a list of 10, 20, 30 influencers in your industry. And when you create great content, of course you have to have great content, but when you create great content, send them email. Send them email and ask them, hey, do you like this content? If you like this content, please share and provide some links so that it will be easier for them to share. Maybe it's tweets, maybe it's LinkedIn posts. And this is an example that when I produced my content, I knew that some VCs, some entrepreneurs will actually enjoy sharing my content because I provide a reason for them to actually share. Because I know, what I said to them is this, hey, I know your audience will like it. I know that if you like this, a lot of startup founders follow you, and they will enjoy this content as well. So I was able to actually get my content shared by David Cancel, Andrew Chen, and a few other people. And again, quality of content is important, but ask influencers to share, because they also want to build the relationship with their followers, and they want to build that with a great content. And if you have it, it doesn't matter who produces it. Number 4, newsletters. One of the most underrated marketing strategy, newsletters. First, you should have your newsletters in every company, because this is only one way for you to build this personal relationship with the customers. Because tomorrow Facebook might go down, of course, very unlikely, but still, you cannot control how Twitter does their feeds. You cannot control what you can do on LinkedIn, but you can control experience to your newsletter. The same goes with distribution. Find top 5, 10 newsletters in your industry. Every time you create great content, send them emails, say, hey, this is a content that we think is very good, and we think that your particular readers will like it. And by the way, I've been running some of the newsletters. It's so difficult and time-consuming to find great content to put in newsletters. So you're actually helping them out. You actually save time for them, because you're sending this article, they read it, they don't have to actually search what to put in the newsletters. Number 5, share with communities. I think it's pretty simple. LinkedIn groups, maybe not that effective these days, but there are still some groups that actually quite active. Facebook groups is very good. And then we talked about republishing your content on LinkedIn and Medium. Basically, it's called recycling of your content. We talked about it where you produce a piece of content today. On Tuesday, you release it on your blog. Next Tuesday, you release it on Medium with a summary with the links back. Then with another summary, you release it on LinkedIn, again, with links back to your original content. And again, it works perfectly, especially if you have a pillar big content, because you can take different steps, different pieces of it, and actually run each piece for a week of promotion. And actually, all of those content will go back to your pillars. This is how you build that high traffic and volume. Share with communities. Reddit is a very difficult community to crack, but if you do, you'll get a lot of benefits. This is probably one of my only successful share on Reddit. With Reddit, what you want to do is that you don't want to push your content the same way. So what I tried to do, and it worked sometimes, is that I actually tried to write a new type of content. Like I write a couple of paragraphs actually explaining what I'm trying to, why I'm sharing this here, what is helpful, and I just include one link. So I don't put a lot of content. I just try to be very precise. And for those people who actually find it helpful, they can go back and read the rest of it. Another 2 great communities to look if you're writing for startups, it's a Growth Hacker. Again, if you write some sort of summary, don't just paste it there, write some sort of summary. And by the way, when you do those, share that through the social media as well. So very often I would post it on the Growth Hacker, and I'll just reach out and I post it in the LinkedIn, hey guys, please support the content. This is something I've done for you guys. Hopefully this will be helpful. And the other one is Quora. Quora, again, is one of the most underrated communities out there. The reason for that is, actually, I don't know what the reason for that is, but if you search, if you produce content, analyze what type of questions. I spend about an hour going through Quora every time I produce and release content, understanding what questions this content helped to answer. And then, again, I write some sort of summary. It's not exactly copy-paste content, but I try to answer really genuine questions and then link them back to the original article. So the good thing about Quora that if you do it on a consistent basis, you sometimes answer some questions that allow you to build a great views and traffic to your website as well. So this is an example of Quora questions that I've done for a company I've been working with about 3 or 4 years ago. And this actually question, all about actually using company, this is a link in the first sentence about the company, but because the value of the content is valuable, people actually saw it and upvoted. So you got 46,000 people looking at this answer, and you had paid 0 money for this. The content ROI from here is incredible. All right, guys, so this is another way, before we end, I want to kind of make big point that content strategy is important. It's so important that a lot of companies actually write books. So I wanted to kind of project and show you a couple of the examples. So customer success. Does anybody know what company actually wrote it? We have a problem with clickers, so it's going to take a while. Gainsight. That's quite a content strategy, because what they then do, they repurpose this content on their blog, and it provides them a whole different channel to talk about the company. Subscribe. Subscribe is written by a founder of Zuora. Conversational marketing is written by Drift. Fact content marketing, not very kosher name, but it's written by Uberflip, because again, they wanted to talk about the future. They want to understand, they want to educate customers of how they see the future, how they can help them. Sales engagement, outreach, already $1 billion company. And just an example, this is a book that I co-authored. It's Mastering Product Experience SaaS. But what I'm saying is this, that content strategy will become that every company will produce books, will produce podcasts, will produce videos, will produce blog posts. Content is the #1 thing that you have to worry about marketing today. So with that, I would like to leave you with one thing. Content marketing is the thing that's going to drive your brand and your company and your growth. Make sure that when you think about content marketing, make sure that you focus on content production and content distribution. And with that, if you guys have any questions and would like to connect, I'll be happy to answer some of your questions. And if any of your startups want to ask me some questions or reach out to me, always happy to help. Thank you very much.